Well, it's good to be back with you. Thanks to John Moss for the news, and it's good, as I say, to be back in the studio here live at the grandstand, and we are also live. I can't get used to this, but we are also live on our Manx Radio TT Facebook page as well. We've got more guests this afternoon to come to you, and the first one now I'm going to speak to after 2 o'clock news is Andy Hynes, and he is otherwise known as the Racing Preacher, and he's a sidecar passenger from Walsall with his driver John Shipley here as a newcomer at the TT. I have to say, Andy has been a fan of motorsport for nearly 30 years and first came to the TT in 2013, but now is here competing. Good afternoon to you.
Afternoon.
I noticed a tweet on Twitter earlier in the week, and I knew from that moment I really wanted to talk to you because you've got a really interesting story. And if I just read the tweet out that I read, it was just absolutely lovely. Loved it. This is after your first time out on the course. Loved it. Shed a tear. Emotional experience after 29 years of dreaming it. Hours doing laps to think, and it's now paid off. And you've been doing those laps, of course, on YouTube, haven't you? Just watching them over and over. And just explain to me that first moment, how that did feel when you got into the bike and you went down Bray Hill.
It felt great, and it was just trying to get comfortable, and also as well because it was the newcomer's lap, we weren't going that fast, so just taking the views in, looking around and just trying to calm myself down, because I think my heart rate must have just gone through the roof, to be honest.
I'm not surprised, but you are no stranger to a sidecar, because at the moment you are competing in the British F2 Sidecar Championships and you're now up to round 4, so how has that been going?
It's been going fine. The bike wasn't quite ready at the start of the season, but I was able to get on with another guy, so quickly got up to speed. We had a good race at the last round in Mallory where it was really hot, and also we've got Oliver's Mount coming up as part of that with that driver later in the year, so really looking forward to it.
You have got a very interesting story, because really when you're not racing, Andy, you're doing something quite different. You can be found leading services in churches across Walsall. So let's talk a little bit about what else you get up to, as I say, as a preacher. I don't know much. I mean, I'm not very up to what I should know possibly about religious titles as such. So just explain what a preacher is.
Yeah, well, I'm what's called a local preacher within the Methodist Church. So within Methodism, quite often you'll have ordained ministers, men and women, who are paid, and they'll be in charge of maybe 10 churches. But whilst Jesus could do many miracles, a minister can't be in 10 places at once. And John Wesley, who started the Methodist Church movement, he then also took forward the whole idea of local preachers, so people who've had some training and some guidance and some support. So the ministers will do some services, but the vast majority of services in the Methodist Church are done by people like me, local preachers.
And how long have you been a preacher for?
I think I've been preaching, probably about 10, 12 years now.
So apart from this, because it's not a paid job, what else do you do?
Well, I work for a national charity called Visionary, and we're an umbrella organisation for local sight loss charities across the country. And I've actually been over here in the Isle of Man working with Manx Blind Welfare Association and helping them up in Onken.
What does that entail? What have you been doing?
Well, quite simply, I do all the business advice and support. So I, in a nutshell, help the local blind loss charities get the resources, which is mainly money, in that they need to then be able to do what it is that they do with it, which is to help blind and partially sighted people.
A really rewarding job.
Yes, very much so, and it's and there's a bit of a parallel between that and being a preacher, in that as a preacher you're bringing sight to the blind, i.e. the sight of faith to hearts that are blind to God's love, and then obviously professionally I'm ending up helping charities who are literally helping blind people see to some degree.
Whilst you've been here on the Isle of Man, have you been at the Methodist Church?
Yes, I did. I went down to the Methodist Church on the Prom on Sunday morning, which was great. Had a really nice service. Just as many Manx people are, whether they're in a church or not, incredibly welcoming and lovely. So,
what is the reaction that you get as a preacher, and then you tell them that actually what you enjoy doing also is a bit of sidecar racing?
Surprises people, I think. They can think, well, you're mad. Why on earth are you doing that? But equally as well, people are then quite interested, certainly from the churchy side of things. Do other people know that you go to church if you weren't there? And that's where it came in, having the Racing Preacher bit on the leathers, was just to sort of say, well, yes, I do.
It's great that you're here with us, and as I say, Andy Hynes is here live on Facebook as well, so we're on our Manx Radio TT Facebook page. If you've got any comments, please make sure that you do add them to the Manx Radio TT Facebook page, and we will be reading them out just after the break. And let us know where you're watching from, let us know where you're listening from, because it's always good to connect with you, because we know you're listening all over the world. Well, you, as I say, really no stranger to the Sidecar paddock at all, and you've just come to the Isle of Man. It was the first time you came to the Isle of Man was in 2013, as we said earlier on the show, and that was just to watch. You've just made your debut as also at the Pre-TT. So let's just look back at last weekend, because in practice, out of 24 bikes, you were fourth in qualifying and fourth in a race. However, you were in third position. There you go, there's my waffle. You were in third position, weren't you? What happened, because you ended up coming fourth?
Yes, we were in third and holding third really well. First and second had cleared off, so we sort of thought we've got third, and then the engine just started smoking and one of the cylinders was just starting to let go, so we were losing power. The guy in fourth just drove past us on the straight, and we'd driven past him earlier, so we knew we weren't going to be able to hold on to third, so we just nursed it back for a lap and came in on fourth, so we were really happy with that though. What
do you make of the Bland circuit?
I absolutely love it, but boy, it's bumpy, and especially on a classic bike. I mean, the big course is bumpy, of course, but it's a very different sort of setup. And Dave Molyneux's bike is a lie-down bike here, and the classic bikes are lie-down ones as well. And when I saw Molly's, I thought, my goodness, how do you hold on to that round here? But clearly, him and Dan are doing very well.
Such a different thing for be watching it as a spectator to actually be a passenger on a sidecar. I mean, it is a thrilling ride. What is it that you just love about what you do?
To be honest, the bit that I really love is getting the sidecar to do what it is that the driver wants. That's the bit I like the most, because if the driver can feel that the bike's doing what he wants or she wants, then they'll drive it fast, and I like going fast, quite simply.
And how mechanical are you? I mean, how good are you with getting in there and being able to sort things out?
Reasonably handy with a set of spanners, but I would say I might have the surname Hynes. I have nothing to do with the Hynes manuals at all. But yeah, I'm reasonably handy with the spanners, but I wouldn't say I'm any expert.
Now, on your website, you do say that there is a challenging and inspiring story behind a verse you were given on the back of your leathers, and it's Acts 20 to 24. I want to know more about this. Yes,
certainly. Well, the way that sort of happened, I was racing at Darley Moor, it's a circuit up in England, and I'd had a little bit of an off earlier that day. I got spat off by my driver at the chicane, got back on in the afternoon, and I was also feeling just a bit down, and I didn't know whether it was the little accident I'd had or what, but I was missing church, quite simply, missing my church family, because a lot of racing happens on a Sunday. And I had a little pray about it and literally said to God, right, if I need to stop the racing because I'm out of church, I'll do that, but I need some sense, or give me some direction about what you would want me to do. And I just had an overriding sense of, if you're going to carry on doing it, do something with it, which is often what God will do. He won't say yes or no, he'll say something like that. So as I was driving out, something I caught out the corner of my eye said Acts 20:24, and bikers often sell and swap bike parts between each other. So I went and knocked on the awning, went in, there was red bikes, and I'd seen a white bike in the middle with Acts 20:24 on. When I went into the awning, it was only red bikes, there was no white bike there. I asked the guy, where's the white bike, and he looked at me like I was mad. We've never had white bikes. And I thought, hold on, that verse was for me, wasn't it? So I got home, looked it up, and Acts 20:24 says, however, I consider my life worth nothing. My only aim is to finish the race, to complete the task the Lord has given me, that of testifying the good news. So that was the real message of just do something with it. And that was one of the last races of that particular season. So over the winter I had a bit of a think, a lot of praying, and it sounds really corny, but that's where the Racing Preacher bit came from.
Lovely, what a great story. Thank you so much to Andy Hynes for being with us. We are live on our Manx Radio TT Facebook page. The comments are coming in, so do make sure that you do add anything that you would like me to ask Andy, and we'll be back with you just after this short break.